Hello there and welcome back to my YouTube channel. I go by the name of Dr. Heinz. Thank you so much for tuning in once again for another video. To all my new subscribers, thank you so much for subscribing onto the channel and welcome to Dr. Heinz Thought Express. And also to my existing subscribers, do check to see if you're still subscribed because I'm getting a lot of mentions to say that they're being unsubscribed from the channel. So do check for that. For those that do watch this video, do consider subscribing. We have a lot more videos to come. There's a lot more in the works. For this video, I'm going to be talking about specifically the Ariadna Jacob versus Taylor Lorenz case. I done a 3-part series which I have released. Is on the channel as we speak. The playlist is attached onto the description and if possible the card. But I wanted to do this addendum because the declarations of Kyle Offers and Adam Cohen was actually mentioned, but I foolishly edited it out in the amended complaint because it was just way too long of a video. It was, to be quite honest, the video is actually 6 hours long with everything considered. So there was a lot of editing that had to be done. So I should say. So this is kind of the extra part so that you guys can go and read this declaration if you want. And it's just there as an extra resource if you want to get a bit more understanding of why Taylor Lorenz is actually purported that way, and and it gives you that little bit of insight why Taylor Lorenz, if they amend the complaint is not enough, they should back it up, because these are people independent from Ariadna Jacob, such as Kyle Offers. I believe he is not affiliated with any of these two, but as well as Adam Cohen, who I believe was a former client, or probably still is a client. I'm not too sure, but I'm gonna say former. I'm gonna go with former. So it's going to be very interesting to see what they have to say, which is the main reason why I'm doing this addendum, because I do feel like it does give a lot more overview if you were not convinced at all by the amended complaint that was presented. So without further ado, let's just go right into the video and dive right in. If you have not seen the amended complaint, it's not really required, but I would recommend that you actually go and watch it from part 2 and part 3. If you need a lot more context, part 1 is there for you. But let's go on to the declarations. Okay, so we're gonna start with the declaration of Adam Cohen. I believe he filed this on. This was filed on the 5th of October, but I think he gave this to Lorenz and Co in September. I'm not too sure. I think he made this declaration around then. We're gonna read it now. So it says here, I, Adam Cohen, pursuant to any and all applicable law, and hereby declare as follows. I am currently 18 years old and I am a student at University of California, Los Angeles. In or around December 2019, I sent a DM to the Influences Instagram account managed by Ariadna Jacob. It was well known that Influences was working with Charlie D'Amelio, who was one of the most influential people on TikTok at the time. I'm really struggling to write and at the same time it's new to me, so bear with me. I'm trying to make it a bit more clearer. Anyway, it says influential people on TikTok at the time. I was looking for a social media manager. Miss Jacob had a very good reputation at the time. On around January 27th, 2020, my father and I signed a management agreement with Influences. I was 16 years old at the time. From approximately January 2020 until August 2020, I was managed by Influences and Miss Jacob. Miss Jacob talked to my parents regularly. She also brought me many opportunities that helped my career. During the course of working with Miss Jacob, I attended many collaborations at free content houses. Miss Jacob managed including Girls in the Valley, Drip Crib, and Kids Next Door. I witnessed that all the content houses that were managed by influencers had an iPad at the entrance with a system that required people to sign in. And sign a waiver. The waiver stated that creators knew that everything filmed on the property belonged to influencers, that they could not disparage Miss Jacob or influencers, and that there were cameras throughout every property. It was well known across TikTok creator industry that influencers required guests of content houses to sign an NDA, a non-disclosure agreement, and a liability waiver. This was common practice at other collab houses that existed at the time. In or around May 2020, while I was working with Miss Jacob on a collab house of my own called Alpha House, I followed Taylor Lorenz on Instagram. Big mistake, lad. Let's just actually stop here for a moment. The reason why I'm stopping here is because not only is number 5 actually. I mean, this is why I mentioned in the video that this declaration by Cohen, if it's not enough to bury Taylor Lorenz, then the amendment complaint has already done the job. But that's why I said it, because he is attesting to the fact that they have signed a liability waiver, and this was common practice in the influencers house. So at the time as well. So it's not looking good again, if it looked any better before, because Miss Jacob, I'll start again. It says, in or around May 2020, while I was working with Miss Jacob on a collab house of my own called Alpha House, so he was making Alpha House at the time, I followed Taylor Lorenz on Instagram because Miss Jacob told me that Miss Lorenz wrote an article about Charlie D'Amelio published in the New York Times that made Charlie and others very successful. So this is actually laying the groundwork a little bit, if you didn't notice, that Lorenz has always had an invested interest, and if you want to create the idea that she was building these influencers up so that she can take them away from them. So that's kind of what this is presenting here from what I'm seeing. The title of that January 2020 article was Hype House and the Los Angeles TikTok Mansion Gold Rush. I wanted Miss Lorenz to know who I was and to know about my Alpha House project. I started communicating with Miss Lorenz through Instagram DM. Okay, that's very interesting. Receipts already coming. Let's see. In or around May 2020, Miss Lorenz contacted me about a story on collab houses. Miss Lorenz asked if I could talk on the phone with her about a story, but it was late at night, so I asked if we could talk in the morning. When we spoke in the morning, Miss Lorenz asked how old I was and asked me about my collab house project. The conversation was very positive, although I felt very intimidated, nervous, and scared of Miss Lorenz. Of course you should be, because of the power dynamic. I mean, I can understand that. I mean, I think you said in there that he was 16, 17. So I can understand how someone maybe in their 30s or anything like that, already powerful in the New York Times, and you as a upcoming content creator would want to make a good impression. So I can see how that would be very imbalanced from the beginning, because you don't want to really step a foot wrong. It's not the same in terms of, the same nervous jitters that you would get meeting someone that is influential per se and you are of age. It's more of, shoot, like when you're that young, if I'm going back to when I was young, if you're meeting someone that influential, your head is thinking, I need to impress, it's make or break. You're not going to have that agency to be like, no, you know what, I don't need you, sort of thing. If you get what I'm trying to say. My parents never spoke to Miss Lorenz, and she did not ask to speak to them at the time. Miss Lorenz also asked who my manager was, and I told her it was Miss Jacob and Influences. My Instagram profile had my email displayed as adam@influences.com, so brands and journalists could contact my manager to get in touch with me. Proof? There we go. He says who he says. So there's no need to doubt him. Number 8. Miss Loren's story in the New York Times titled "Delayed Moves, Poolside Videos, and Postmates Spun the State of TikTok Collab Houses" included a quote about Alpha House, which I was very proud of at the time. So already you can see the seeds being planted here. It was a big accomplishment for any content creator to be mentioned in the New York Times. Immediately after the article was published, I received an increase in emails from brands who wanted to work with me and other creators who wanted to be part of my house. This is also an interesting declaration as well, because it's giving us a perspective away from Ariadna Jacob on the possible idea or the possible position that these other clients that did go onto the article may be feeling or may have, thought of when they were receiving these mentions in the New York Times by Taylor Lorenz. So it gives you that impression that there was, a bit of a build up here, that these kids were like, oh wow, look at what she's doing and what I'm getting from my manager. So if it comes to a bit where there's a bit of disagreement, for example, they would be more favored to go over to Lorenz's side. That's what I'm noticing here. In or around June 2020, many of the girls in the Valley and Drip Crib members began posting photos and videos of themselves at parties. I was aware of the parties and understood that Miss Jacob was stressed because photos and videos show the creators were behaving badly and not following the rules. Remember, this was COVID time as well, so this is quite understandable because it is your brand at stake, and you're supposed to be following the rules, etc. This wasn't happening, so at least it's corroborating what was alleged or brought out by the plaintiffs in the amended complaint. Miss Jacob and I exchanged discussing the parties at the Drip Crib that the girls in the Valley were attending. I texted Miss Jacob, "Don't let them be mean to you," in reference to the creators who were breaking the rules and disrespecting Miss Jacob. I believe Miss Lorenz knew about most of all content houses parties that occurred and which creators were in attendance, because there were many outlets covering the subject at the time. So it wasn't just Lorenz covering it; it was other outlets too. I think he's provided the video and the article, which you can all go and see, which I think will give a lot more context to all of this. There's the text message and the Instagram message where it says, "Yeah, don't let me mean to you." In or around August 2020, Miss Lorenz called me again. This time her tone was very different from the first time we spoke. I recall her asking me if I was still working with Miss Jacob, to which I responded yes. She followed by asking if I had heard all the stuff going on with Miss Jacob, about her manipulating talent, behaving badly, and other things that sounded very negative about Miss Jacob and Influences. She told me that she had spoken to Alex Umazo, Emmy Combs from Girls in the Valley, and other influential creators who had been managed by Influences in different points in time. So you can already get the idea here that she was bringing everyone together, and she was trying to get him to come on board and tell his story as well. Although I felt pressured to give Miss Lorenz negative information about Miss Jacob, I had not experienced negative interactions at any point during the 7 months I had been working closely with Miss Jacob. I did not witness Miss Jacob behaving unprofessionally around any creators. So this is where I believe Taylor Lorenz is gonna build a case around that. They were just telling her about her negative experiences, and she doesn't really know what went on. I mean, it's not gonna work. May work, to be honest, but I just don't know how you can argue yourself out of a lot of things that you didn't know, and you still went ahead anyway. I'm gonna find that very hard to actually believe, but it does give the idea that other creators were giving her information, and he wasn't. So whatever information she had from other creators, it's reasonable enough to think that she, would rely on that information, even if the information was from Miss Jacob, maybe, contrary to what she's receiving. She would be, like I was trying to say before, she would be in that position where it was like, I don't know, I'm just going to, go with these guys, or go with Jacob on this one, or something like that, and try to build a nuanced article, for example. So that's what I'm thinking of would be a most likely retort to all of this. But I just don't see her going far with anything that she's gonna argue after a minute complaint. I can't wait to actually see what she comes up with, if I'm being honest with you. My response to Miss Lorenz was that I knew Miss Jacob for who she was, and I didn't experience what she was describing. Miss Lorenz continued to share more negative information for a few minutes, but I did not go along with what she was saying. This seemed to anger Miss Lorenz, and she seemed pissed. I love it. I love it. Angry would have sufficed. Frustrated, any word, but I'm glad you said pissed. Because, of course, Taylor Lorenz will be pissed. She didn't get her way. She became very short with me after I did not share negative information about my manager, and we ended the conversation. Number 13, on or around August 12, 2020, not too long after my conversation with Miss Lorenz about Miss Jacob, Miss Lorenz texted me, "So selfish and irresponsible, Adam. I'm very disappointed to see this." Quote, unquote, in reference to a tweet from Alpha House. The text made me feel upset. Miss Lorenz knew I was just 17 years old, and this was my first business endeavor. This was the power dynamic I was talking about earlier, and I could understand why he would feel like this, because again, it's a make or break. You're that young, you're gonna be like, oh shoot, this will be my life if I don't really suck up. So that is part of the reason why a lot of if I could speculate here, a lot of parents really oversee their children's contracts a lot in the entertainment industry to try and remove that side and, manage it in a way that they would not be feeling like it's the end of the world, if I should say. So I just thought I'd throw it out there. It felt as though Miss Lorenz was shaming me because of a business failure during an event I had hired security and an experienced event producer for. Content house projects are not easy. I was learning and doing my best. This is horrible. So yeah, that's the redacted version. Alpha House, etc. Def Noodles. Okay. So selfish and irresponsible, Adam. I'm very sorry to see this. So she did. I'm interested to see what Def Noodles actually said in that picture. I'm gonna try and find that tweet later on. But yeah, I believe that Miss Lorenz acted in bad faith, but by spreading misinformation about Miss Jacob and influences unfairly. Based on what I witnessed of Miss Jacob and influences from December 2019. Okay. I believe that Miss Lorenz acted in bad faith by spreading misinformation about Miss Jacob and influences unfairly. Based on what I witnessed of Miss Jacob and influences from December 2019 to the article in the New York Times on August 14, 2020, titled "Trying to Make a Bill Online, Gain Signage and Everything," I believe Miss Lorenz was one of the people who could have originated with the negative information that was being spread about Miss Jacob and not the TikTok creators. Huh. So wait a second. Are you saying that? So the TikTok creators didn't? I'm confused. So the TikTok creators are not the ones that was spreading this negative information. It was actually Lorenz stirring it up. Okay, this is interesting. That typo there is supposed to say before, but it says FIFO. Before Miss Lorenz published the August 2020 article, I have never seen or heard of any negative press about Miss Jacob or influences online or on social media. In or around 2020, after the August 14th article about Miss Jacob, influencers attempted to continue overseeing the Other House project as my manager. Miss Jacob had given me an iPad for guest signings. At this point, the creators were upset when they saw that influencers logo on the iPad and did not want Miss Jacob or influencers to be involved with Alpha House. This is showing damages that was being done. Reputational damages as well. This is showing. At this time, it was very unpopular to say anything positive about Miss Jacob or influencers, and those who didn't speak negatively about Jacob were bullied by other creators. Unlike what I witnessed at the December 2019 Instaskate event, where Miss Jacob was popular and respected amongst creators, after the 14th of August 2020 New York Times article, I witnessed creators who had never met Miss Jacob or anyone from influences express very negative feelings about Miss Jacob and influences. Reputational damage done. Following Miss Lorenz's negative article about Miss Jacob, I did not feel like I could speak up about what happened to Miss Lorenz. I could not speak. Okay, I'll start again. Following Miss Lorenz's negative article about Miss Jacob, I did not feel like I could speak up about what happened due to Miss Lorenz's power and influence and power. I also feared about being retaliated against and bullied by other content creators who spoke to Miss Lorenz. Of course you would be. Signed, Adam Cohen. Of course you would be. She doxes people like this. Let's just get that. Let's just make that understood. She doxes people. So of course I can understand how this kid feels, because this just happened and he doesn't want to lose his opportunity to do anything. But now it's died down. He has presented this, so I mean, you can see that he wanted to do something. You can see how he's trying to help. Now we're gonna move on to the second declaration, and this is Kyle Offris. He is very independent from Ari Jacobs. If you want to be free from bias, so if you think that Adam Cohen is trying to protect Jacob, this guy has zero motive to actually be in this. So let's see what he has to say. Exhibit B. This was declared on the 12th of August 2020. So this one is something that was done before the motion to dismiss. So again, bias is stripped, and I don't think this was even presented for the motion to strip, for the motion to dismiss. So again, it's now brought in. So we shall see. Says to whom it may concern. My name is Kyle Offris. I am the president of Quantum Stocks. It's not letting me highlight. I'm sorry about that. I'm the president of Quantum Stocks, which owns and operates the website quantumstocktrading.com, the Quantum website. On July 13th, 2019, and thereafter, an online article titled "The Douche of Wall Street: How Ayatofanian Scams Innocent Investors." The article was published on Quantum, the website, which is a website that I maintain. The article accused Ayatofanian of being a fraud, a scammer of his customers, and of operating a pyramid scheme of scams. I was a source of information for Miss Lorenz, a New York Times reporter, currently with the Washington Post, and providing her with information that she used for her November 2019 article. Thousands of college kids paid to work for a viral party kingpin. What could go wrong? This sounds awfully familiar. We shall see. In the article, Miss Lorenz asserts that Mr. Tufanian promised students Instagram fame, then silenced them with threats. Miss Lorenz never asked me for any documentary proof showing Mr. Tufanian defrauded or scammed anyone, or that Mr. Tufanian was operating any kind of pyramid scheme. Of course she wouldn't. She's Taylor Lorenz. Why would she ask you? From what we've read so far, color me shocked. I was also the founder of group chat, whose members were directed to a source of information to Miss Lorenz for our article. I did not provide any material to Miss Lorenz to support a tweet thread she wrote about Mr. Tufanian that reads, "Yet don't put any of that energy into actual scammers defrauding people of tens and thousands of dollars on Insta. Like, take a look into some other social media influencers, especially the men, brackets, and put some of that energy into holding them accountable. It's all I'm saying." Copy of the tweet is attached therein. Can we just stop here for a minute? And this is our pattern. So remember when I was talking in the a minute complaint about there being a slew of deleted posts? This is what she does. She roughs this up, and I'm pretty sure you can't find this tweet now. Pretty sure it's not there. But it's very interesting that it's literally the same way as she approached the Reuters, the Reuters post, and quote tweeted it, and it's just very interesting. The language is splitting. It's a splitting image. But yeah, there's some information in the article or other publications that I created or published online through social media about Mr. Tufanian that were not accurate. Oh wow. Okay. Also, some of the information and statements about Mr. Tufanian that I provided to Ms. Lorenz were not accurate at the time I communicated them to her. As examples, I did not have any knowledge or evidence of Mr. Tufanian running a pyramid scheme or stealing money from anyone. After contemplation and review of notes and documents in my possession and my correspondence with third parties regarding Mr. Tufanian, I now realize there was not and is not any evidence or grounds of statements that made about Ariadna Jacob in my article. My company, and I'll be fair here. If he fed her bad information, you can't blame Taylor Lorenz for it. You can maybe blame her for, not inquiring further to see whether this is actually, truthful information before going to publish. Fine. But at the same time, you can also give a leeway. I mean, I'm trying to envision myself as a judge, following, like looking at what reporters would do. I'm not too sure about the statutes on how reporters should behave or the case law, etc. That's not the point I'm trying to make. What I'm trying to say is any reasonable and logical person would be like, if you've got this information, hey, this information, you can forgive that person for saying, look, I didn't know this, I relied on this person. So you can forgive that. The obvious point here would be you as a reporter knowing the weight you hold, knowing how much influence you would have, especially working for New York Times, you're going to take a bit more care and, scrutinize the information a little bit, try and get the meat out of the bones, try and see if this is even worth chasing. So that's what I'm thinking logically is that, look, you wouldn't stake your reputation on a whoopsie. So that's what I'm thinking. My company and I do not own or control. Sorry, my company and I do not own, control, possess, manage, and or run, nor are we aware of the identity of the persons or entities that own, control, possess, and or run our Instagram accounts with the handles Are Your Stock Scammer, Are Your Tufanian Scams, Are Your Scams, and Sensa Stock Scam _ of course. I understand these Instagram handles are inspired by and contain and contain material similar to those in my article, The Douche of Wall Street, How Ayat Tufanian Scams Innocent Investors, unquote. I have removed the article from the Quantum website and all locations on the internet where I was able to locate the article, and I have removed from the internet and social media platform all statements that I previously made about Mr. Tufanian. I mean, if you're removing the article and you have admitted you shouldn't have wrote it because it wasn't accurate information. I mean, for Taylor to not inquire a little bit is a bit. I'm gonna guess he removed it after. I'm not gonna guess. He said it right there because he was bringing. Let me read on. At the time of publishing the article and the statements about Mr. Tufanian, I did not appreciate the degree of actual damage that may have been inflicted on Mr. Tufanian. So, from what I understand, is signed on the 8th of 17th. From what I understand, reading that, he wrote the article. Taylor Lorenz ran with it. Damage done. He took it back, but Taylor Lorenz already didn't take back our article. I think it's still up, and yeah, it says here, I commented on Caroline Alloway's Insta post that I was sorry getting so attacked by vegans online. She said she was going vegan, then admitted she keep eating salmon, and now my entire inbox is flooded with hate mail. I don't believe that. I don't know why I don't believe that. Clearly she makes you guys angry. Time that's valid, but I just can't get over how many people will waste hours attacking everyone in our comments, calling her a scammer, yet don't put of that energy into actual scammers defrauding people of tens of thousands on Insta. Okay, I guess that's the context. But if you're saying these things, I mean, investigate first. That's what this declaration is telling me. Take a look into some other social media influencers, especially the men, and put some of that energy into accounting. That's all I'm saying. I mean, I can. It was a short declaration. There was nothing really much to go off there. Let me try and find these articles actually. So this article by Taylor Lorenz was actually written in 2020. It is still up. He took his down, but this is still up. So it was published on November 2019, or day 21st of February 2020. And I'm not gonna go through the article because it's not really that relevant. I just came here to show that Taylor Lorenz doesn't actually care about any facts whatsoever, because something is telling me if Kyle Offers is actually taking down the article that inspired the article that you wrote, maybe you should follow suit and also take down your article. Because if he has admitted that it wasn't actually accurate, you should follow suit. However, we'll give Taylor Lorenz again the benefit of the doubt. What if Kyle Offers didn't message her anywhere at all to say, look, I've taken down my article, it was inaccurate, please take yours down? If he done that, that would be a bit different. But I do feel like this declaration by Kyle Offers, I don't think it moves the needle too much. I think it does infer that Taylor Lorenz doesn't actually care for the facts per se, that she wouldn't answer the question. So it could go to satisfying some case law to suggest that, any case law that might be, again, I don't know. If there's any case law that holds journalists to the standard of, looking through and scrutinizing their source to get, to get factual information, this would go to satisfying that and saying that no, she didn't actually do any of this. And yeah, that's all I can think of, because there's not really much in there, in my honest opinion, to suggest that Taylor really did anything wrong. She just relied on the information that she was given. Okay, sure, she didn't scrutinize, but she was just relying. So there is that. It's very interesting, this entire case. And upon reflection of this case, I do hope that Ariadna Jacob does win. I didn't do this series. I didn't do this coverage to dunk on Taylor or anything like that. I know it seems different from the amending complaints video that I've done, as well as the motion dismissed. I know it seems like that on the videos that I've done. It really isn't. It's to show the example of what not to be as a journalist. If you want to aspire into that field, look at this example of Taylor Lorenz and just do the complete U-turn, do the complete opposite, because this is not how journalism is supposed to be like. I'm not doing these videos to signal and say don't trust them in the mainstream media or anything like that. I personally think that they are actually needed. They do the work to bring us news that we have never seen. But of course, everything in the world is always going to be biased one way or the other. We are biased creatures in the end. We have our tribes that we used to belong to when we were back in those days. We just can't get rid of that. So the responsibility is partly on us to sift through the news or sift through journalists and try and get to the ones that are reliable. But we have to hold them to a standard. And I think this is the one case that could be very impactful into having those standards established, because I have not seen such a recklessness at all. I mean, and of course, it's not a good ground to end on in terms of Cal Offer's declaration. It's not as strong as Adam Cohen's, but as a whole, and actually putting at least the first part of the series, putting it all to bed, it's how do I put it? It's alarming that someone can do something like this and could actually just be protected as a journalist because she could just be relying on sources and that's it. I don't think that should be the case. I think there should be a lot more on them to get these information correct before doing such a damaging piece like this. I always say this, especially in the case of defamation per se, where damages are assumed, like, where you're doing criminal, where you have to satisfy, like, like, for example, sexual abuse or the R word, or lying about someone's business, or all those things that could actually damage someone and it's already seen on his face. I think for those standards that there's more scrutiny when someone comes forward, and not just relax per se and just take their word for it. You know what I'm trying to say? That's mainly the takeaway from all that I've seen here. I think that there has to be some reform of some kind so that these journalists can actually improve and bring more accurate stories. But if there was such a standard, then there would be, there wouldn't really be a lot of leeway to bring these cases. So, like, this defamation cases, and say, look, they lied about me, because, that standard would be so airtight that you actually can't scrutinize these, journalists if it was that meticulous. So I see it. It's a conjecture after all, I'm just throwing something out there just based on what I've seen. It's just a conjecture, but I feel like there should be some kind of standard set for people like this. But nonetheless, that's the addendum video done. Thank you so much for watching it all the way to the end. If you have watched all the way to the end, if you like the video, if you didn't like the video, thank you so much for actually watching. I hope that you guys got something out of this. I hope that you guys enjoyed the video. Thank you so much for tuning in. Have a wonderful weekend or weekday whenever this video drops, and take care of yourself. Bye bye.